Nice.
I am, in fact, online while it lasts because my modem I am having difficulty with. But I want you to pay attention to the first three letters of my hat. The name of the hat is Converse. And that's what you're getting. That is, in fact, what you're getting from the Trump White House when it comes to border security and what they're doing to create border security and what border security actually means. Now, I'm going to put a different pair of glasses on for a moment, and I'm going to post. Just give me, I only have to post two things before people start in the chat window, and it's going to be real fast. I'm going to post the name of the title of the video. Then I'm going to post the name of the article that I'm going to refer you to, and it's going to explain everything in regards to what border security actually means, as opposed to what President Trump is stating the border security means. And from my understanding of the way it's worded in this article, when it comes to the word families, you are not getting the truth as to what families are. And this article explains the definition of the word families that are being processed at the border. A family that's being processed, you would imagine to be a mother and a father and several children. That's not what the word family means. What the word family means, and what this article that I posted the links to means, there's a member of another nation at the border states that they have family members in America. So that just expanded the word family from a unit of family members at the border to any one of 1,000 different contacts this person might have at the border. What the word family means is that this person at the border, when interviewed by the ICE agents, will give the name, not necessarily the address, and a phone number of a contact member he has or she has in America, none of which can be verified if they're actually relatives. And then what happens is the ICE enforcement agent in charge of that person who is trying to seek asylum calls up the family member. And what they do for the person who's trying to get into the country is they interview the person on the phone and they ask pertinent questions to what relationship is that person to the person at the border. And then they ask for an address and directions to wherever that person may live in the United States. The next step is to confirm that somehow they know each other and they're related, which to me would be impossible. I could just call you up and give you a bunch of information and you could just agree to it and tell the ICE agent what I already explained to you is supposed to be the truth. So therefore, immediately after the ICE agent gets the information as to where this so-called family member is in America, they take the person at the border and they process that person, whatever that means, and they release that person with bus fare, transportation to the family member. At that point, the person is in America. And at that point, they're going to get an immigration lawyer to explain to them all their benefits. The benefits for the average illegal immigrant from Mexico coming into America is $3,850 per month. If they work off the books for an additional $10 an hour, which they do, and I am familiar with that in South Florida, because one of the companies I hired to do work for me, I had 7 acres of big, big trees. I'm talking, oh, they were 125 to 160-foot, what we call whispering pines. And they had trunks that were anywhere from the smaller trees, 2.5 feet to 7 to 8 feet in diameter, the tree trunks were. The root systems were 25 feet across when we pulled them out of the ground, some of them. So I hired a company who had a huge wood chipper that I could put the roots and the branches through, and then we tried to chip as much as possible. And he had an endless amount of illegal immigrants working for him, which is none of my concern because I hired him as a company. So when the building inspectors came, they just overlooked it like it didn't, they didn't ask anybody for their immigration papers. But somebody reported us to the ICE agents in Key Largo, or we were working in Alamorada. So whether they came from Marathon or Key Largo, I don't actually know. We didn't ask them those questions. And the ICE agents came and interviewed the owner of the company who I hired to work. I had the backhoe and he had the chipper and the men. Okay, so we were both licensed contractors, but none of his employees, not even one, was a registered migrant. He was paying them all cash off the books. I paid him with a check. He'd cash the check, and he'd pay them off the books. The ICE agents discovered this to be true, and they did say they were going to follow up on it, and they did, apparently, because they did nothing. I asked, I won't say his name, I asked this gentleman that was working for me, his company that I hired, if anything ever happened with his ICE, with the ICE agents and his whatever the paperwork was. I don't know what they call the paperwork, but their interview with him, and the job lasted 2 months. And this happened like on day 2 of the job. Like I said, it was 7 acres. There was hundreds of big trees and their root systems. And he, at the end of 2 months, he hadn't heard anything from them. Him and I happened to be friends, and I happened to be the one who repaired his wood chipper whenever it broke. I saw him several months later when he brought the chipper to my house for repairs, and he told me that he's still at that point didn't hear. So ICE came to his job. They interviewed him. They interviewed the men. They were completely understanding that the men had no papers to work in America, no green cards, none. And they were completely understand that all of the men, there were about 8 men, could have been 9 on any different day. We never put more than 8 or 9 men because that's all we really needed between the backhoe and just loading the chipper. 2 men on a chainsaw, myself on a backhoe, and the other 5 men loading the tree branches into the chipper. So there were 8 people discovered on this, my job site, with no paperwork. ICE interviewed the owner of the company, who they said they worked for, and they did work for him, how they were paid cash. So when you begin to understand how much of a joke ICE is, then you understand how much of a joke Mr. Obama's border, Mr. Obama, sorry, Mr. Obama. God, I never thought I'd have to say that. Mr. Trump's border policy is. It's as porous as Mr. Obama's border policy is. It just looks different on paper. So this article explains that any migrant coming into the country, America, through a portal that is a registered portal into America will go through processing. And then there will be, if they meet those requirements, I'll tell you what the military is there for in a minute. If they meet those requirements, then if they just say they are family members, they only have to say it. They don't have to prove it with any identification. They don't have to have identification on them. They just have to say they are a family member of a person in America and give them that person's phone number, all of which could have been prearranged through emails from whatever country they came from weeks or months before. They get processed. The border agents find out directions to their family member's house, and then they provide a method of transportation to the person's house. The person gets to the so-called family member's house. They call up an immigration lawyer. The lawyer comes, or they go to the lawyer's office. They fill out these forms, and then they're guaranteed about $3,850 per month per immigrant. If you take that money, and we're just going to go on a 10 month is 38,000. Add another 8,000 to that. That's 46,000 pesos a year. I mean, $46,000 a year per immigrant. $46,000 per year per immigrant. That's $46,000 per year per immigrant. 10 years, $460,000. 20 years is $920,000 per immigrant in 20 years. So basically, the immigrant costs each American taxpayer, or the American taxpayer, approximately $920,000. However, if there are mitigating issues like heart surgery, elective surgery, they can even have elective transgender surgery once they're in the country. And that's like $1 million by itself, between the treatment and the out care and everything like that. But each person basically is costing America roughly $1 million. Now, let's say there are a couple, and let's say they have 2 children. Well, then you can quadruple that amount of money, because the children are also going to collect school benefits, medical and dental, and food. Okay, so it may not be $3,850 for a child, but it's probably something close to that. By the time $26,000 a year per child for the cost of education, that's the cost of education in New York City per child, $26,000 a year. And then, I don't know, maybe add another $10,000 a year for food and medical expenses. So you're up to $36,000 a year just for schooling. $26,000. Add another $10,000 for food and medical expenses, dental, medical, whatever. So now we're up to 10 months would be $360,000, and add another $7,200 to that, and 360.